Hello, my name is Jason Mankey, and I'm the Director of Programming and Campaigns at the Wisconsin United Methodist Foundation. And I'm here today to present the pre-campaign evaluation study that President Crystal Goodyear and I did at Algoma Boulevard United Methodist Church. And I'm presenting this both in person and virtually for your congregation. And so I'm going to start by sharing my screen. There we go. And as I mentioned, this is your pre-campaign report. And I'm from the Wisconsin United Methodist Foundation. And the mission of the United Methodist Foundation is to assist the ministries of Wisconsin United Methodists in Wisconsin through lifelong financial stewardship. And we do that in a number of ways. We invest your church's money. You have a few endowments with us there at Algoma Boulevard. We help process stock gifts, charitable gift annuities, and other types of planned giving on behalf of your church, free of fees. We help with stewardship training and resourcing, and in fact, we have a stewardship series of stewardship workshops at your church this Saturday, and I'm very thankful for your church for being willing to host us for that. We lead seminars on wills and planned giving. We loan churches money for building projects. We help raise funds for building projects through helping with capital campaigns. We offer grants to local churches, scholarships to college students and seminarians, and much, much more. So what did we do at your church? Well, your church sent letters and made calls inviting folks to be interviewed as a part of this study. And like I said, the president of the foundation, Crystal Goodyear, and I came on December 12th and 13th, and we did 28 interviews of 37 folks. And they were 30-minute interviews in which we asked 20 questions to measure people's attitudes about the deferred maintenance projects that are being planned to be cared for through a capital campaign, the timing of the campaign, what types of gifts you can expect, and so on. And I'd like to extend a hearty thank you to the Administrative Council for inviting us, to Pastor Cathy and Deb Nelson for organizing the interviews. And I'd really like to thank everyone who participated in the interviews over those 2 days. So what did we hear regarding deferred maintenance projects and a campaign to fund them at Algoma Boulevard United Methodist Church? Well, the folks we talked to had a combined 887 person years of participation and membership in your congregation. And the average amount of participation or membership in your congregation of the people we talked to was 24 years. And we've talked to some folks who were just there for a year and a half, been a part of the church for a year and a half, and some folks who were a part of the church for 65 years. And we asked, what do you feel are the greatest strengths of your congregation? And the number one strength that folks noticed was the people. Friendly, caring, having a sense of community and dedication. And we definitely felt that when we came to speak with your folks as well. Pastor Cathy was named as a strength of your church. Her leadership, her enthusiasm, all she does for your church. People also named inclusiveness and the strength of lay leadership as strengths in your church as well. We then asked, what is your greatest need, or what is your the greatest concern in your church right now? And the number one need was more members, especially more families and children. The second isn't a big surprise, concerns surrounding COVID issues. How do you remain safe during this pandemic? How do you reestablish connections with one another if you haven't seen each other in a while? Restart faith formations and figure out what the post-pandemic church looks like. And boy, I'm excited for that as well. And then the third greatest need in the list was the building and taking care of the building. In terms of capital needs that a possible capital campaign would address is the flooring and replacing the carpet, repairing the parking lot, replacing 2 boilers, sewer assessment that is coming this year on Algoma Boulevard from the city, caring for the repair of exterior windows, fixing the sanctuary lighting, replacing a security and phone system, tuck pointing in the sanctuary, and then also wrapped up in this goal is the cost for the capital campaign, giving the leaders who put this information together a goal of about $490,000 to address all of that. And we asked folks when we interviewed them, are you aware of the plans to care for these deferred maintenance projects? And we found that 78% or 29 of the people we interviewed were aware of a plan to care for deferred maintenance projects. And 14 folks had been involved in planning for the deferred maintenance projects. Now, this next thing is something of note that I will circle back to in my recommendations, but most of the people we interviewed felt the congregation is either slightly or not at all informed, that 51% of the people about the plan to care for the deferred maintenance projects, or somewhat informed, and that was 46% of the people. So there was a desire to increase communication, to increase awareness. We asked people, how enthusiastic are you about caring for these deferred maintenance projects? And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, and the average enthusiasm was an 8.1, which is absolutely fantastic. And the ranges from the people we asked were between 4 and 10, and 46% of the people we talked to were either a 9 or 10 in their enthusiasm for completing these projects. We then asked people, how enthusiastic do you believe the congregation is? And that came across as an average of 5.5 with the extremes of a 2 to a 9. Now, it's not unusual to think other people's enthusiasm is less than yours, but there are a couple things of note that came across in these conversations. First, people said, well, you know what, it's COVID and we don't see people regularly, so we don't really know how they feel. And that most certainly is valid. Second of all, people said, we don't really know how much people know about the deferred maintenance projects and the plan to care for them. And so if they don't know about it, they can't be that enthusiastic. The next question we asked is, do you believe you'll be able to raise the funds as a church needed to make the $490,000 goal? And 15 folks said yes. 6 folks said no, we think that's too much of a stretch. And 16 folks said, you know what, we're really not sure. So if you plan to go on with a capital campaign and some work beforehand, the goal isn't necessarily to flip the people who said no to yes, but to build momentum and help people truly move from the uncertain column to the yes column, to show that it is possible within your church. And I certainly think it is. We then showed people a typical giving pyramid, this typical giving pyramid for a capital campaign with a goal of $490,000 over 3 years, and a congregation of 154 giving units, which is the number of giving units, people and families who give to the church. And typically when a church is looking to raise $490,000, they'll find that 25% of the goal is covered by 5 people, giving an average gift of $24,500. 25% of the goal is covered by 10% of the people, who give an average of $8,167 over 3 years, and so on and so forth down the line. So we asked, do you believe there are enough givers in your congregation that could cover tier, that would give it a level of tier A and tier B. And 18 people said, yeah, we believe that that's possible. 2 said no. And 17 said, you know what, we really don't know other people's financial situations, so we can't say. We then asked each person, are you willing to make a gift or a pledge to a campaign? This isn't a commitment, but would you be willing to make a campaign based on what you know now? And this is fantastic. 36 people said, absolutely, I'm willing to make a gift to pledge when asked to do so. And one person said they were unwilling. We then asked, back to those tiers, which tier would your gift fall in, do you think? And we had 2 folks who said that they'd be in tier A. We had 11 folks in tier B, 10 in tier C, 2 in tier D, and 2 in tier E. And it's very positive and promising, the number of folks that you have in tier A and tier B. This actually reflects that you probably would be able to get the givers you need to fulfill the top 2 levels of that pyramid along with others. We then asked, what is the best reason you believe to complete these deferred maintenance projects? And people said it's really important to care for the building. And in fact, it will be more expensive later to put off these projects. The second greatest reason people gave was to make a positive impression on guests and visitors who come to the church, whether it's for worship or another activity. And you said your congregation is very visible in the community, which I agree, and you want to make a positive impression on the people in the community. We then asked, what is the greatest barrier, do you believe, to completing your goal, in achieving your goal? And folks said, well, we're not sure if we'd be able to raise the money. And that is a common top concern of churches considering a capital campaign. The next greatest barrier was a tie between 2. Some folks said, yeah, you know what, we need greater communication, as I mentioned before. And others said, you know what, our church has been declining in membership a bit, and we wonder if there's enough people here to support the campaign. And some people, the fourth concern was COVID. You know what, how would we do a capital campaign in the midst of COVID? So then we asked, who other than the pastor and staff do people look to for guidance and direction in the church? In other words, who are leaders in the congregation? And the participants named 27 key congregational leaders, and participants named 11 possible campaign chairs, people they thought would be good to lead a capital campaign. And those names have been shared with Pastor Cathy. 89% of the people who were interviewed said they'd be willing to take on either a leadership role or would at least be willing to assist with the campaign. So there are people who are willing to help with this effort. So what did we find regarding individual gift considerations of those we interviewed? Well, out of the 28 individuals and couples we interviewed, 25 of them mentioned amounts in terms of an estimate, a low estimate and a high estimate of what they'd be willing to give, knowing that this wasn't a commitment at the time. The total low estimates added up to $193,710. And the total of adding up all of the people who said, this is our high estimate, is $256,296. And that ranges, the commitment range from folks went from $720 to $25,000 that they'd be willing to make to this campaign. So the question is, how do you know what you'd be able to raise in a capital campaign, at least as a starting point? And there's 2 rules of thumb for this. And the goal is to look at these 2 rules of thumb and see if they overlap at all to give us a picture of what you could do at Algoma Boulevard. The first rule of thumb is to take 2 to 3 times the estimates found among the participants. And that would be for this $387,420 to $768,888 is a range of what you could expect to raise in a capital campaign. Now, you'll notice that I've got the $768,888 grayed out. And that's because with a well-planned campaign for deferred maintenance projects, they're not as exciting as new building. So new building generally will raise the highest end. And so I would recommend to set our sights a little bit lower on the high end. So raising between $387,000 to $581,000. Likewise, another rule of thumb is to take 1.5 to 2.5 times past annual giving. And annual giving last year for this congregation was about $300,000. And so that would mean you'd be a rule of thumb would be you could raise $450,000 to $750,000. Once again, graying out that top one, you'll find that the two rule of thumb estimates overlap, which is fantastic. And it's right where you're shooting targeting to raise funds. So that's very promising. Now, there are 5 other areas of measurement to consider when deciding whether to proceed with a capital campaign. First of all, is there a clear vision of ministry? Consider what God is calling your church to do. What is distinctive about your church? How does this project fit in with your mission? And do the members of your church understand the vision? And some of the people interviewed had made a connection between the building needs, the deferred maintenance, and the mission and vision of Algoma Boulevard United Methodist Church. In other words, we need to care for our building, not because it's important to care for a building, but because it's important for welcoming guests and visitors. Really need, I think, moving forward, it's really important to clarify, articulate, and strengthen that connection. Second of all, looking at the pastoral and staff leadership, the success of any capital campaign is tied to the strength and influence of the leadership. The church will seldom accomplish more than its staff is qualified to lead. And fortunately, Pastor Cathy was named as one of your church's strengths, and that's how I've experienced her as well. And it will be important to leverage her gifts and the leadership, her gifts and leadership, along with the rest of the staff. And the whole staff and leadership needs to be on board and part of the effort for it really to succeed and do well. Fourthly, you need strong lay leadership. The staff and the Pastor Cathy can't do it all on their own. So lay leaders must be involved and proactive, and lay leaders must believe in the vision of ministry and the purpose of the project. And lay leaders felt positively and supported completing the projects, which is fantastic. And, if you are able to really spend some time on communication, I think that will even strengthen support and bring even more leaders from within the congregation on board. You need a consensus within the leadership. Strong staff and strong leadership must be working together toward the same goals and objectives. And there seems to be a consensus between the pastor, staff, and lay leadership regarding the deferred maintenance projects. In other words, that they need to be done. There was some lack of clarity on people's minds in terms of which projects are most important and how exactly they're going to be addressed. So I think that's important to work out. And once those things are worked out, or as they're being worked out, it's important that the whole lay leadership have and know all of the information so they can help communicate to the rest of the congregation in both formal and informal settings. And then there definitely needs to be congregational buy-in, and people must believe in the project, and there is a strong level of enthusiasm among interviewees, and that's fantastic. Effective communication is a must, and I believe taking time for a massive communication campaign is needed to help the whole congregation feel informed and enthusiastic about moving forward, and that will be key to the success of any capital campaign. And interviewees were split between believing the church can achieve the goal of the campaign and being uncertain. So securing lead gifts at the front end of the campaign before it moves into the public phase will build positive momentum and will help increase confidence and help folks truly believe that you can achieve your goals. So what are our recommendations from the Wisconsin United Methodist Foundation? Well, first, communicate, communicate, communicate. No surprise, right? So communicate, what is your mission as a church? And how will these projects and funding these projects help fulfill your mission? Take some time, hold congregation information and listening sessions, both in person and virtually. Give in-person and virtual tours of the building and the different projects that you're considering undertaking and why, so people can see what you're trying to address. And I believe it's nearly impossible to over communicate. So leverage your current communication tools using your website, your newsletter, Facebook. Continue to move ahead. Decide if you as a congregation will continue to meet, if you will meet the challenge. And I think you're ready to. And involve many people in the planning, design, and execution of moving ahead, both in the communication campaign and the planning, and in the planning and execution of a capital campaign. The more people that are involved, the more likely it is to be successful. And really emphasize the spiritual side of giving. It's important for us as Christians to remember and for us to communicate through a campaign, for you to communicate through a campaign, that people don't give to the church just because the church needs it, but because there is a difference that is made in people, the givers' lives, and a difference made in the lives of the people who are recipients of all the church offers. And it's a spiritual practice that we're engaging in when we're generous. And I would encourage you to get the help you need, whether you decide to work with the foundation and with me in a formal capital campaign or work with another company. It is, I think, best, and studies have shown that it's best to hire someone to help you through this project. I'd encourage you to develop a 3 to 5 year stewardship plan in order to continue to help people grow as generous givers as a part of their discipleship. Our culture says a lot about money, about spending, and about our need and desire for more. Well, what does Jesus say? What does our faith say about money, how we earn it, how we save, how we spend, and how we give? Ask people to wrestle with the question, what is God calling me to give? Use the resources that are available to you. The stewardship grant here at the foundation that comes with financial incentives. Pastor Cathy and Andy Irvin took a training on the Saving Grace financial planning program. I'd encourage you to launch that in your church to help people continue to work out their finances in a faithful way, and continue having annual giving campaigns like New Consecration Sunday that focus on the spiritual side of giving. And last but not least, celebrate. Have fun. Celebrate what the current building has done for the congregation and the community and how people have experienced God through it. Celebrate the financial successes you've had in the past, and celebrate the life-giving ministries that are happening right now at your church. So there's more details in a report that your leadership has and Pastor Cathy and office have, that are available to you if you would like to have it. I invite you to pray and think about what God is calling you to do. Discern where God is calling you, and then if you decide to move forward, continue to communicate with the congregation about what your plans are and where you plan to go in the future. And always, as always, move forward in mission and ministry. So thank you for your time, and my prayers will be with you. And if you have any questions, you can obviously contact your church office or contact me at the foundation. Thank you.